Number 3 is start asking really good questions. And this is where most people, when we go on to interviews, feel that we should allow the interviewer to run the entire meeting. And I believe that's a mistake. I believe, in fact, I very rarely find anyone who's a good interviewer. So I tend to take the reins and I want to know the who, what, where, why, and how. So I plan these questions ahead of time, and I'm going to give you some samples, but I plan them. What do I want to know? What's important for me to know about this company? And what should they know about me as well? So, I mean, sometimes we get into these interviews and they don't even ask the right questions about us. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. But these are the questions I would love to have you think about, because if you go in without a set of questions, just like with doing the research, when they flip the whole conversation back to you and say, do you have any questions? And if you don't, it really will break the rest of the conversation. They expect you to come with questions, and they want you to come with really good questions. So don't wing it. I will tell you, I am living proof that when you wing it, you fail, because I have not done well. And whenever I thought I knew all the answers and walked right in, it didn't go well. So here's a list of some qualifying questions that you can ask during your next interview. And this was one of my, this is the top one, and it's the most important. It's one of the things you're going to be asking. So what's most important to you when choosing a person for this position? What's most important to you when choosing a person for this position? Ask them to describe the person. Tell me a little bit about them. Elaborate a little bit. A lot of people will say different words. See if you can get 2 or 3 things, or even 4 different things. What else is really important? What else is really important? What you're trying to do at this point is, especially when they send out, I've seen enough job descriptions and I'm like, that's your utopia plan. Great. I think that's wonderful. You wrote down every single thing that you would like this person to do. Nobody has that many traits. Nobody can do all of these ever. So I usually try to get to, let's just get to square tags here. What is most important to you? And then I get them to elaborate. Remember what I said at the very beginning? Seek to understand. The more questions you can ask about the position to get them to tell you more, the more you're going to be able to talk about what you bring to the table that's important to them. So the reason we're asking these questions is because when you hear 3 or 4 things that are in alignment with what you do really well, then you can then talk about those 2 or 3 things. Remember, you had told me that these are the 3 things that you told me that were really important to you in hiring for this particular position. Let me tell you how I'd be able to actually fill that for you. Now you actually have ammunition to actually go and talk to exactly what they told you was most important. So seek to understand and then to be understood. So once you get this information out, it's really going to give you some power. Second question, who have you hired in the past and what did they do really well in this position? So what did they do well? Will you be the person making this final decision? Now, a lot of times when we're interviewing, we have to go through a couple of gatekeepers. We have to go through HR, and then sometimes we might go through a different person to get to the final decision maker. You need to know who you're talking to. So I usually just ask them, are you going to be the person making the final decision on whether or not I'm going to get this job? And if they say, no, I'm not the final person, there's a couple other people, I would ask them, who else is making that decision? And what is most important to that person? Because sometimes we're talking to someone and they might think they have a whole bunch of things that are very important, but it might be different from the person that's making the final decision. And then I ask them, how will you be making that decision? When will you be making that decision? How much does this position actually pay? I would not be afraid to ask for how much they're willing to pay, because what you don't want to do is keep moving forward. If you have an expectation of what you want to get paid, and there's a drastic difference between that, you want to make sure you go fish where the fish are. If this is not the right position, you're going to want to move somewhere else. Also keep in mind, they never give you the full amount. There's always wiggle room at the top. So they expect you to negotiate. So they will never give you the full amount, but you want to get in the ballpark and make sure you're in the right place. So how much does this position actually pay? The next question is, who else are you looking at? You need to know who your competition is. Who else is looking at this? Who are you looking at for this position? How many people are you looking at? And this is where I'm going to ask you personally here. Do you know what differentiates you from the competition? Do you know what skills that you have that really outshine anyone else? What are those skills that you have? And we're going to talk about that, because I want to talk about how you're going to present those skills, what I call features and benefits of the skills that you bring to the table. But make sure you know, how many other people are they looking at? And again, how are you going to, so based on all these people that you're looking at, how are you going to make a final decision, and what's most important to you in that? Make sure you're really clear. And every time you ask a question, listen with intent. Listen with genuine curiosity to understand who you're talking to or what they're trying to say. What's important to them? I think we've all heard the word WIF, WIFM. What's most important to me? They're going to tell you if you ask them the right questions. And then the other part is, I don't assume I understood what they meant. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was in hotel catering sales for a very long time. And people would call me all the time saying they were looking for dinner. And I'd say, okay, so what kind of dinner are you looking for? We're looking for a really nice dinner. Well, my idea of nice and someone else's idea of nice are probably two completely different things. Would you elaborate a little bit more on that? Tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. What describe the dinner for me. How much are you willing to pay? So now I want to get them into really getting into detail on what they meant. So if someone says something, well, we're looking for a really good employee. Would you describe that? Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Tell me a little bit more what your definition of good is here. What kind of skills do you expect them to be doing? So don't assume you understood what they meant. And one of the ways I usually come back and ask them, I usually say, let me make sure I understand you correctly. This is what I heard. Is this what you meant? So again, just like in sales, when you're asking questions during an interview, you're going to start to get buying signals. You're going to start seeing a nodding of heads. You might see them talking a little bit faster, leaning forward, getting a little bit more exciting. You want to be watching for that, because you want to make sure that you're on the right path.